My name is Dr. Rosario, and I'm a biology professor at Westchester University. And if you're having trouble understanding muscle microanatomy, I'm here to help you figure it out. So if you've been in my class before, you know how much I love figures. I use figures in my lectures, I use figures on my exams, and I like to use figures because they can be really rich with information, but that can also make them difficult to interpret. So today, I'm going to walk you through a couple of examples, but before I do, I think I got to go teach my class first, so I'll be right back. All right, so we're back here in my office. Just finished giving my 2 hours of lecture for anatomy and physiology and general bio. And today we have a video specifically for my bio 259 students. So if you're in bio 110, don't worry, this information you won't have seen before, but I have another video coming up for you pretty soon. But if you are an anatomy and physiology student, you might have been a little bit confused about muscle fibers and muscle fascicles and muscle fibrils. And so I do want to take some time to really talk about that and go over a couple of figures that might help. So first of all, here is a great figure that will basically have the whole muscle belly all the way down to the level of a muscle fiber or a muscle cell. Now, how do I know that that's a muscle cell, right? The first thing I look for, if you can find it, is a nucleus. So it kind of looks like a watermelon seed over here pushed off to the side. That gives you a sense of scale, and that kind of helps me try to figure out what scale I'm looking at. Otherwise, things just look like long columns of muscle, long tubes of muscle, right? But if you can find that nucleus, that is a great sense of scale to tell you that this entire thing that we're looking at over here, that is a muscle cell, that's a muscle fiber. Another thing that you can see if you pay really close attention, there's a dark vertical line right there. There's a light vertical line, a dark vertical line, a light vertical line. Those are alternating light and dark bands, known as striations. That is another feature of skeletal muscle cells that you see. Light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. So there is your muscle cell, also known as your muscle fiber, because they can be incredibly long. Okay. So what do we do now that we have figured out what the muscle cells are? Well, once you see the muscle cells, you'll see the next structure of organization that's a little bit larger. This structure right here is made up of a bundle of muscle cells or muscle fibers, and this entire structure right here is known as the muscle fascicle. Now, if you're curious, fascicle is just a general term for a bundle. So you can have a bundle of muscle fibers, you have fascicles and tendons, you have fascicles and neurons. You even have fascicles in terms of like leaves coming off of a bud. I'll just show you a picture really quick of a plant that has fascicles. But a fascicle is just a bundle. And when we're talking about muscles, a fascicle is a bundle of muscle fibers, right? So once you find a muscle fiber or a muscle cell and you see that we're wrapping them all around in a single unit, that is a bundle, also known as a muscle fascicle. And if we take a step back even further, we see that muscle, the organ, is actually made up of a bunch of muscle fascicles, right? So here we're saying this is the cell, here is the fascicle, there's the entire muscle, known as the muscle belly. Right, so that is just an easy way to kind of approach these figures. Try to find a nucleus, try to find striations or a banding pattern, and well, if you can find those, that gives you the sense of what the cell is, and then you can use that to figure out what's bigger than it, what's smaller than it, so on and so forth. Now let's do some practice, right? Here is a different image, but we can practice using those same skills to try to figure out what the heck are we looking at here. Right, so I'm just going to bring it closer for a second so we can take a look at what's going on. Right, first thing I want to look at, where's the nucleus? Right, where's that watermelon seed? And if we look really closely, we can start to see right there, that's a nucleus. Right, let me see if I can point it out really quickly. It's lighter colored in this case, but that's going to be your nucleus right here. That's also another nucleus right there. That gives you a sense of what we're looking at, okay? So once you identify that, you're like, okay, that's a nucleus. That means that this entire thing, that's got to be a muscle cell or a muscle fiber. And if we're actually looking at
what this entire thing is, this might look pretty similar to a muscle belly, but what we're actually seeing is this is one muscle fiber. This is another muscle fiber. This is another muscle fiber, and we're bundling them all together. This is actually showing you a muscle fascicle, right? So very, very different scale of what we were looking at from the previous image, but you can sort of use those features to try to figure out where you are, right? Find the nucleus, find the muscle cell, see if those are bundled together. That is your muscle fascicle. We're not actually showing the muscle belly or the muscle organ here. We're just showing the single fascicle, but that kind of helps a little bit, right? Now, there's something that we've been ignoring up until this point. I started with the cell, right? We started with the cell, and we went larger to a fascicle, right? What's going on over here, right? These are actually myofibrils, right? Myofibril is just like a smaller fiber, or these are the components that make up myofibers. And so that is your myofibril. These things are going to contain the myofilaments. And why does that matter? Filaments like thick filament, filaments like thin filament. These are the things made up of actin and myosin that help us do our cross bridge. We'll give you just one more example. We're going to zoom in a whole bunch. And so this image right here, you can tell a couple of things. First of all, no nuclei. Right? Not every image I'm going to give you is going to have that same thing. So if you don't have a nucleus, what else can you do? Well, if I give you this image and they didn't have the labels on there, one thing you could look at are banding patterns, light, dark, dark, striations. Those are striations, which means that this entire thing is the level of a muscle cell or a muscle fiber. Okay, that means that all the things that are in here are myofibrils, and if we look even closer, we can start to see these blue structures over here that look like a zigzag. We can see there's red lines that are going over there, and then another zigzag structure over here. These are Z-discs in blue. Z-disc here, Z-disc there, and going across are the thick filaments. Now, can you see the thin filaments? If you were to zoom in a little bit, you could see the thin filaments, but they're just a little bit difficult to show with this size scale of a structure. But again, that is a little bit helpful. While we're looking at the level of a cell, because again, this is going to be important for the lecture, the outer layer, right? This is kind of showing, if I can do this right, try to get this perspective correct, right? Right here, that is your sarcolemma, right? The sarcolemma is just the outer border of the cell. This is going to be very important for the neuromuscular junction and for understanding how do we get the neurons to talk to the muscle. But there is your sarcolemma just on the outside. And we also are going to see the sarcoplasm, which is just all the stuff that's inside of the cell, right? That's just another word for the cytoplasm of muscle cells or muscle fibers. All right, so that was a quick little review. I tried to give you some practice. Hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully you understand a little bit more how muscle microanatomy works. Let me know if you have any other ideas for other segments of Figure It Out that you want. I'm very, very happy to find more images, print them out, and go over them with you all. But I hope you have a great day, and hopefully I will see you in class.